and Clay's not alone. There's a private first class Lori Pistiva. Now, she was born and raised a Hopi Indian on the Navajo reservation in Arizona. She became the first woman to die in the Iraqi war. She also is the first Native American woman ever to die in combat on foreign soil. She was only 23 years old and the mother of 2. And it's appropriate to talk about PFC Pistiva because this month happens to be Native American Heritage Month. Navy Commander Bill Krisoff. Let me tell you something about old school. Old school don't play. His oldest son, Marine Lieutenant Nathan Krisoff, was killed in Iraq in 2006. Bill Krisoff was an orthopedic surgeon, doctor. He was in private practice. He closed his practice and he petitioned the President of the United States to go fulfill his son's duty. Some of us laugh about that. Say, what kind of foolishness is that? It wasn't foolishness to him. President Bush gave him a waiver. This doctor entered the Navy, was trained, and went to Iraq. He didn't go by himself. He went with many others. And one of those many others was his youngest son, Lieutenant Austin Krisoff. They both served in Iraq. Commander Krisoff was 60 years old. He got a waiver to 67 years old. He is now still serving at 63. He's an ordinary man doing extraordinary things. I want to tell you about one other. Y'all remember Specialist Shoshana Johnson? Some of you might remember Shoshana. Specialist Shoshana, bad lady. This mother of one was shot in the foot in Iraq and captured. Specialist Johnson became the first female prisoner of war of African descent in the history of the United States military. Now, didn't hear a whole lot about her nationally. You probably heard a lot about Jessica Lynch and some of the others. But you see, this young lady was crawling while she was shot in the foot, and she could have crawled away from the enemy and maybe around the corner, or maybe got behind one of those rucksacks like Jessica Lynch did. But she was crawling towards the enemy and towards other fallen comrades when she was captured. She wasn't running. She now serves on the Government Committee for Wounded Warriors as a disabled veteran. And some of you may have seen her just the other day on CNN after this ambush in Fort Hood. And this young lady was talking, a professional person, veteran, and they had another guy on there. They had this attorney on there and was talking about all the effects of this and that and the other. And he mentioned to her, he told her, he said, well, young lady, I don't think you know what you talk about. What do you know about war? Sister, lit him up. And it shows how out of touch this person was, who happened to be on national news, because he did not know that she was a former POW. Specialist Johnson's an ordinary young woman from Panama who accomplished extraordinary things. Now, I'm not going to talk a whole lot more about specifics. These are just examples of courage and service and sacrifice that reflects on today. These folks impact you directly. I could go on and talk about heroism throughout the past, our 11 wars. We're still in a war today. But I just want you to consider the impact that these individuals have had on the world, defending freedom and protecting democracy. I'm reminded of the words of Winston Churchill, who said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." Fortunately, our military is made up of ordinary people accomplishing extraordinary things. And only 10% of our American society is veterans. 10% accomplishing so much, from defeating communism and fascism and imperialism to keeping peace during the Cold War, to to battling terrorism today, America owes a debt to our veterans that can never be repaid. And interesting enough, as example here, we ought to have standing room only. But this is just some of Command Sergeant Major Roland fussing. You know, I love Michael Jackson, y'all. And in fact, I was practicing doing a moonwalk a couple of weeks ago. Hurt my back a bit. But you know, I watched the lines of folks that was at his memorial, and the lines of folks waiting to see the movie, This Is It. And I thought about today that across the country during Veterans Day, you probably don't have half those folks. And we're talking about now the veterans who were the folks that actually walk on the moon, not just moonwalk. We're talking about folks who have walked around the world. Some of them sat here. We're talking about folks that been there and done that. So that is truly what is it. And we ought to recognize that. We ought to talk to our veterans. We ought to take time to go out and to the VAs, to go to other places. It's not just enough to go down here on OBT and hand a dollar bill to that veteran that's sitting on the side of the road, that's saying he's a vet. You want to do something that can help him get off the side of the road. You want to do something that helps her get out of the circumstance that she's in. You see, too often we find other things to do. We're watching TV while veterans are helping veterans. When I go up to the VA, I'm a 90% disabled veteran. And when I go up there and I'm standing around with my comrades, and every now and then I look out the window and I see a veteran getting out of his car, or see her getting out of her car, and they get their cane out, and it's very difficult to make it that 30, 40, that 100 yards. And I see another veteran run out oftentimes. And this veteran will come out, and she's got her cane too, but she'll get that wheelchair, and she'll push, and then she'll rest, and she'll push, and then she'll rest, and they'll get there. Standing tall. Where are you? Watching TV? You see, I ask folks who may not be veterans to involve themselves. Veterans need your help. VA, other organizations. Get involved. And also ask veterans about what they've done. You know, sometimes we just need to ventilate a little bit. We need to talk, and oftentimes we walk around and we look at folks doing foolishness. We look at young folks, and we look at you and just say, you just don't know. And you ought to ask, because sometimes we like to tell our stories. It's therapeutic for us to sometimes ventilate and tell our stories, but you need to ask. We're not just going to offer it. And veterans, you ought to tell your story. Ventilate and talk about what you've done, where you've been. Folks, take time to talk with the folks that are here and talk to the folks elsewhere and talk about how important this day is. If it were not for veterans, we wouldn't have the opportunities that we have today. So I say to you today, it's celebration time. Young folks, it's time for you to stand up, step up, and take the lead. We want you to walk point now. As I mentioned, we can't go to the future with you, but we can certainly prepare you. We got stuff to tell you. You need to listen to us, though. And as older folks, we need to share what we got. Don't take it with you. See, sometimes we wait a little bit too long, and we see our loved ones pass on, and we say, my goodness, there was such a story there. He never got an opportunity to tell it. She never got an opportunity to tell it. Let's make it happen now. God bless you, folks. God bless America.